What is this criticizing libertarianism while using libertarianism? Crap. Everyone's had a chance now? Did I miss anyone? Okay, yellow shirt, and then green shirt.
So, I don't know if you saw this recent article by Richard Ebling. It was run on Mises.org and Peter Beckey's blog, whatever it's called now.
Oh, there's a story behind that.
Coordination problem.
Yes, yes, yes.
But, you know, talking about the sort of policy papers that Mises had written when he was at the Chamber of Commerce, which were very incrementalist, and Ron Paul also talks about you know, transition programs. So if you were giving advice to policy people, politicians, would you give any advice other than repeal and privatize?
What other advice could I give besides repeal and privatize?
You know, Ron Paul's transition programs are the sort of stuff that Mises recommended, you know, hold the money supply flat, or whatever advice he was giving.
Oh, I see, I see.
You know, have market socialism, whatever advice they're giving.
I see what you're asking, but I'm not going to answer it. I'll first answer something that you hinted at, namely that these people at George Mason are now not calling themselves Austrian economists anymore. They're calling themselves problem coordinationists, or something like that. And previously, they used to call themselves hermeneuticians. So there are really two kinds of Austrians here. There's the Mises Institute Austrians that are the hairy-chested Austrians, and then there are those wussy, sissy types that don't even want to call themselves Austrians. For a while, they were calling themselves hermeneuticians. And when that came a cropper, because Rothbard and others really ripped into that, they're now giving up the Austrian name for this other stuff. So they're not as true blue as they could be. Okay, now, what was your question again?
I mean, so would you giving advice to policymakers, would you ever recommend incrementalist type policies?
Transition period. I was on a radio program, and somebody asked me about this, and I'm still not sure about it. What the question was Murray once said, if there were a button that I could push on this podium that would bring about laissez-faire capitalism right now, the government would disappear somehow. Would I push this button? And Murray said, I'd blister my finger pushing it. I probably would, but I would do it whistly. Why? Because if I did, the government would start back in 5 minutes. The government is in everyone's heads. And everyone, well, not everyone, but 99% or 98, 97% of the people are governmentalists. They're statists. They can't deal without a government. So they would just reinstitute and there'd be chaos and a lot of people killed. I'd probably do it anyway. It's the right thing to do, but I wouldn't do it happily because I recognize that government is in people. And I also wouldn't pick up the gun and try to assassinate Obama or Bush or Harper or anyone like that because it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work because government is in people. They would think that we're killing God or something like that. No, I think the only proper way to go is through education, reading, writing, educating ourselves, educating others, demonstrating this, arguing, giving ad hominems, whatever, not ad hominems, proofs of the sort that I just gave with the performative contradiction. Trying to get you people or young people, I hope you become professors or journalists and convert your students or your readers into free enterprise through reading and writing and speaking. That's all we have. That's our comparative advantage. We have no comparative advantage in shooting anyone or pushing the button is sort of like shooting the government. Okay, so I might press the button because it's the right thing to do, just like secession is the right thing to do, even though a lot of people die. But I wouldn't do it happily. Now, with regard to transition periods, you know, there are transition periods and then there are transition periods. I mean, if Ron Paul became president on day one, would every soldier be out of Afghanistan and Iraq, to say nothing of Korea and Japan and Germany? And I think we have 800 military bases in 150 different countries. Would they all be home the very next day? No. You don't have enough planes. But it would occur very expeditiously. as soon as we had the planes, they would get out of there. And I think that an apology would be made, and I think he'd pay reparations, not based on taxes, but based on, we'd have a little Nuremberg trial for the people guilty of that, and maybe sell off some public lands or something. That's another issue. But you'd have to have a transition period in any realistic sense. I sometimes joke that if Ron Paul were president, he would appoint me, I don't know, Secretary of Education or the head of the Fed or something like that, and with the idea of getting rid of it. Well, how quickly can I get rid of the Department of Education? Could I do it like that? No, you have to send out the pink slips. It'd take a couple of days. So, and it would take maybe a week or 2 weeks to get all the soldiers back home. That's the kind of transition period I could live with. But the kind of transition period that we're talking about, getting the soldiers out in 2011 in Canada, and Obama's saying we'll get them out. I mean, and then he'll come up with some reason not to do it. Or Hayek's thing in The Road to Serfdom, where his transition period is forever. Look, suppose we had magical powers and it was 1855. We want to end slavery. We have the power to end slavery, but could we do it in one day? No, it'd take at least 3 days. So yes, I favor transition periods, but very, very quick ones. The green and then the black.
Okay, so you said you have issues with taxes and laws, right? Like you think that taxes are coercive and laws are oppression, but at the same time we seem to be fine with me being forced to pay rent to my landlord and having to accept the rules that my landlord gives to me. At the same time that I can leave the house that I live in, I also have the right to leave the country I live in. So why is it okay to pay rent to a landlord, but not as okay to pay rent to your country?
Well, first of all, I'm not against laws. I favor certain laws. I'm not against all laws. I favor the law against murder, rape, theft, kidnapping, arson. There are a lot of laws, fraud, counterfeiting. A lot of laws I favor. Not as many as we've got, but only the laws that uphold the non-aggression principle. Now, why is it legitimate to pay your landlord rent but not Harper rent? Because you agreed to pay landlord rent and you didn't agree to be part of Canada. Where is your signature on the contract that you're a member of Canada?
I'm an immigrant, so I actually had to sign.
Well, that was coercive. They made you sign that. They said you couldn't sign it, you couldn't get in until you signed it.
But
they had no
voluntary.
They had no right to do that. Who the hell are they? They don't own this country. Forget about immigrants for a second, because that's a complication. What right do they have? I mean, I didn't sign anything that says that I'm a member of Canada or the United States. There's no contract. Now, people say, well, there's an implicit contract. You're here, aren't you? So by the fact that you're here, that means you agree to be bound by it? No. That's a circular argument. The very thing in question is, do they have any right to impose on you? And they're saying, well, yes, they do because you're here, but that assumes that they have a right. Look, when the U.S. was first formed in 1776, or when Canada was first formed in 1867, you didn't get unanimity. You didn't get every person in the United States and every person in Canada saying, yeah, where's that thing? I want to sign up and I want to be a member of Canada. And then I'll pay them rent. We'll call it taxes. It doesn't matter what we call it. I'll pay them a fee because I'm a member. You want to join the golf club? You pay the golf fee. You want to join the chess club? You pay the chess club fee. But you agreed to do it. But nobody agreed to be represented by the government. The best book on this is Lysander Spooner, No Treason. It says it's no treason not to pay the government. All these books, by the way, are free on the Mises web. Lysander Spooner, No Treason. Magnificent book, which argues that there's a difference between the landlord and the government. Look, you bought that green shirt. I keep calling you green shirt. You had to pay the guy that you got that green shirt from, right? He made you pay $25 or whatever it was. But you agreed. So it was a perfectly legitimate thing. you couldn't just take the green shirt and then say, well, I don't want